Hey guys, do you have any difficulty in understanding creating a function inside a class, right? And there are so many different syntaxes, underscore, init, underscore, self. There's so many different terms which are coming which might confuse you. So if you are, if you want to have a complete and clear knowledge on how do you create a function, you must watch this video. First of all, if I ask you to create a class, okay, so what you do, you use the keyword class, and then here with that you will be typing the name of the class. So let's say I'm going to give it a name called person, for example, to keep it simple, okay, and then you put a colon, right? And then let's say you have to add a value, let's say name, and here I'm going to say James, and let's say age, and equals to, let's say I'm going to say 36. Okay, so these are the two different. So now what is happening, this is person is the class name. Okay, you need to identify this is the class name. What this is called, name is called the property of the class. What it is called, property of the class. And what this is called, James is the, what is James, it is the value for the property. Getting it? For the property. So what you call, so name is a property of the class person. Age is also a property of the class person. Property means person has name, person will have a age, person will have a height. Properties of a different thing, right? The same way, so these are called properties of a class, and these are called values. These two terms should be pretty clear. Okay, only when you should proceed next. So you understood class, you understood what is a property, what is a value, what is a property, what is a value. So in this class, how many different properties it has got? It has got two different properties because I have defined only two. Okay, all right. Now let's say I'm going to create a variable x is equals to, if I write person, and it should automatically come. Let me try again. X is equal to person, yeah, tab. Then if I put a parenthesis, so what this does, the x becomes the object here. So all these terms is very important, okay, otherwise you will be confused. So x is an object, okay, x is an object, and here person is nothing but assigning the class. We are trying to assigning the build class. So on the top we are building the class. In the line number 2 we have built the class, right? Now this particular class that we have built in the line number 2 till line number 4, here when I say x is equal to person, x will become an object, right? And this object will be built using the properties of the class. Getting it? So don't get confused with the names when I say class, object, class. So don't worry, class means this, property means this, x is an object. That's all you should know. Okay, don't get confused. Object, class. So to pass the values to the object, all I have to do, x is equal to name of the class, whatever the name of the class it could be, doesn't matter. Okay, this much is understood. Now if I say, if I write, what would happen if I write print and I say x dot name? So what is happening, because this object is built with this class, so if I say x dot name, it will be able to access the property of the class. So this is the property I told you. So this is a property. So all I am doing, x dot, x is an object built from this class. So whatever properties are defined, this object x can access it. Simple. So x dot name means x is able to access the name. If I say print x dot age, that means the object x can access the property age. Whatever the value is assigned to it, it can access that. So when I run this, what is the output I am expecting? James and 36 has been out. Let's say I want to write something else. Let's say I want to write here, I will change the value James to Rahul, let's say. So what would happen if I run this? Whatever the value is assigned to the property, it is going to be fetched. So now it has got Rahul and the age value was 36. Getting it? So this is how, once the object is created, whatever the properties are defined inside the class can be accessed. Is it clear till now? This is clear. Once the object is created with that class, whatever the properties, these are the properties, okay, is there, that can be accessed just by writing a dot and the property name. It will be able to access the value of that particular property. So this example is clear. Okay. Now let me ask you one thing. Okay, so let me delete all this just to keep it, keep it clean. Okay, now this much you have understood. Okay, now if I ask you, hey, now what you are doing, you have created a class called person, and inside that class you are defining your own values. What if I don't want to define, I want to pass it dynamically? So what is the ask here? I'm asking need to pass values to the class properties. So where you are passing the values? You are passing the values to the class properties, dynamically. If I have to send it dynamically, how can I do it? Right? How can I do it if I have to send it dynamically? Okay, so how this can be achieved? Tell me. So here we are simply defining the values here. I don't want to define the values. Okay. Now to do this, this is actually pretty simple. All you have to know is couple of different different syntaxes that you have to know. So this is clear. So you have written it down. Okay, you have written it down. So what I will do here, below this, right, below the class name, because I have to send it dynamically, I have to create a function, and this function will be created using a built-in function. The built-in function name is init. What does this init means? If you want, for example, I want to pass a value directly from here. Let's say I want to pass let's say Ramesh, or let's say John. Let's say, okay, I want to pass, let's say John, and I want to pass a value, let's say 28. Okay, so I want to pass John and I want to pass 28 like this. I don't want to define here. Okay, this should not be defined here. Okay, I don't want any value. This has to go dynamically. So for that, all you have to do, so let me delete all this. So for that, how you can do this, let me tell you. To achieve this dynamic, you understood, right? What is the requirement? Requirement is to send the values dynamically to the class properties. So here I have, you have to say init self. Okay, and then what are the two things you want to pass? One is name and age, right? These are the two things. Now you will say, Rakesh, what is this init and what is this self? Give me complete. So what is this init? So the init here, I'm writing a comment here. Okay, what is this underscore init, right? Init underscore. What is this? This is a built-in function in Python. When you have to pass values, at the time the object is getting created, that time you are trying to pass the value. In the previous example, the values are already kept inside the properties, and here you are creating an object, at the same time you wanted to pass the value. When you want to do such thing, what would happen? When you write init, it will understand, hey, for this class I have to start from the line number 3 and take the values. So this self is nothing but, self is a parameter which is used to assign values to name and age. I'll show you in the next line. Okay, so let me write the next line, hit on enter. So what is self? The self is a parameter. When I say dot name, it will refer. So in this initial function, in this inbuilt function, name and age are two different properties to which it should assign values. So how it will assign value? Self dot name equals to name. That means this John will go to the name, and here self dot name is equal to name. So with this we can access the property name. I will show you how this is being done. So let me first write it. Self dot, the next is age is equal to age. Getting it? So that's all I have done. So by doing this, what would happen? Let me put it on a backspace. So what is happening here? The John will be, so look at this, how it is working. Okay, so John, because I am writing initialize, so what would happen, to understand in the line number 3 is where I should pass the value. Okay, so John, it will go to the init. So init means what? A function. It's an inbuilt function in Python which always executed when the class is being called, right? So when I'm assigning a dynamic value while creating the object and I'm passing the value, it will be called and it will go here, and self is just a parameter to refer these two variables. Okay, how many number of variables are there? Just to refer them, self is used. So here what I am doing, self dot name is equal to name. That means this value that is passed will be carried to name, and the value 28 will be carried to the age, and here what would happen, it will get assigned. So why it is getting assigned? For example, okay, now anytime you have to access the value, right, specific property values, what you generally do, you simply say print, take the name of the object, right, and then you write the property name, right? That's all. You simply write the property name. Now because this property names are not in the previous one you have seen, right, it was just written below the class, name equals to John, name equal to whatever, right, it was written directly, so you were able to access it. Now because it is inside a class, you have one more function, that's why the self parameter is used. So self dot name means it will tell Python, hey, anybody who calls the object dot name, that means you pass the value whatever the value is being here. So that is the indication. Okay, so if for example if I print name, what would happen? The John got printed. Let's say if I change it to age and run it, then age will get printed. Okay, so whatever values you are passing dynamically, it doesn't matter. So let's say I'm passing 50, now you will say 50 has been printed. Getting it? So this is what the meaning of the dot underscore underscore init underscore underscore function and the self parameter. The self parameter is used just because when you have to pass the values dynamically and you have to call them using dot age, right? When I'm calling the property just by putting a dot property of the classes, then all I have to do is I have to use self. The self is mandatory. It's a syntax, okay? Syntax for Python. So self dot name, self dot age equal to age. So all the values will be passed, and this is how a classic example of creating a function inside a class. Getting it? So both the things I have shown you. How do you create a simple function, and how do you how do you create a simple class, and how do you create a function inside a class. In this video, we are going to learn how do you inherit the class property. So Python inheritance is the topic. Now what is inheritance? To understand inheritance, let's say a father has properties. All the properties of the father will go to his child, isn't it? By default it will be inherited by the child. So properties of the father will be inherited by the child. The same concept applies in Python, and we are going to learn everything in detail, and I'm going to help you how do you really remember the syntaxes properly. Okay, so let's get started. Okay, so I gave you the example of father and child. Now how do you really create a class? If I ask you, hey, create a class, so how do you do? If I ask you create a function, how do you do? You write def and the function name, and then within the parenthesis you write the parameters and colon. In the class there is nothing called def. Simply you say class and then you type the name of the class. So I am saying parent and put a colon. So this is the syntax, and then hit on enter. Now inside this class block I am going to create two different properties. Okay, I will say it as property 1 equals to, I will say home. You can give any name of the property, not required property 1. You can say p1, p2, whatever you like, x1, x2. So just to get proper understanding, I'm simply writing property 2, and let's say the father has a car, the parent has a car. So these are the two different properties of the parent I have created. Now let's say there is a child class I have to create. So hit on backspace. So for child class, again, how do you do? So you'll simply say child, but to pass the values of the parent. So the parent has got two different values. All these values to be passed to the child. Now for that, what I will do? Simply I'll use a parameter, parenthesis, and inside the parenthesis I will say parent. That is the syntax, pretty simple, and put a colon. Getting it? So I have created a parent class with some properties just to create a child class child, and I'm passing the parent name here and putting a colon in after the parenthesis, putting a colon. That's simple. Because the child class has to remain blank in this case, so I will say pass. So pass is the function that you have to use anytime you have to leave it blank, the class has to remain blank. In those specific times you have to write pass. This much is understood how we have designed. Have a look. Okay, all right, now let's move on to, okay, now what we have done, all the parent property we have passed it to child, but how do I see that? Right, to see that, first of all I'll create an object. So to this object I'm going to pass the class called child. So I'll write the child class, and I'll use the parenthesis. So this way, whatever the child has got, that particular class has got, it's going to pass it to the object called x. So with using x we will be able to work, right, in Python. So I have passed it. Now I want to see the values. So the parent has got property 1, property 2. If I write print, okay, and then I'm saying x is the object which is holding everything. Now I'm going to say property 1. Okay, if I say this, or let's say I'm going to say property comma x dot, every time you have to say x. This is a property of x, right? So property 2. Without his name you cannot really call it. Okay, so now is it going to print home and car? Yes, absolutely, it's supposed to print the home and car. So you can see home and car has been printed. So this much is understood pretty simple. First we have created a parent class, and inside that we have created two different properties, given some values. We created a child class, and we have written class child, and inside that we have said parent and colon. If you remember of this example, parent child, you will be able to design this. Okay, the syntax is important. And then I'm saying a pass. Now after everything is done, all the values are now, which is holding, the child is holding, so I don't have to use the parent, I'll be using the child. So I will say x is equals to child, and right, how you generally call a class, use a parenthesis. So that way I have able to pass all the values to the variable called x, which we generally call object. X is an object. Now the object has got multiple properties. So here it has got multiple two different properties at this time. So to call the property, all I have to say x dot property 1, x dot property 2. This much is understood. Okay, now let's get on to the second stage. So this should be printed in your mind. Okay, now let's get on to second stage. In the second stage, what I want, let's say instead of me calling property 1, property 2, 1 values I wanted to know, is there a way that I can show all the properties, right, all the properties directly, you know, total property or total net worth of my father, something like that. Okay, how to do that? So for that, what I will do, I have taught in the previous chapter, there is something called, you can say, define init, right? I will create a function called self, and I'm going to hit on delete and going to hit on enter. So this property which was part of class, now it is part of this specific function. Okay, now again delete, hit on enter. So this two I have put inside a function called init. Okay, so all this I have explained. How do you inside a class, how can you have a function? So I've created an initial function, and here I am saying home and car. Now what I will do, I'll hit on enter. So all I am doing, just to help you to remember the syntaxes. Okay, now the next thing, I will create a function called define total net worth. What I'm saying, total net worth. Okay, total net worth, and because this is a function, I will use parenthesis. So in this, the self will come. And remember, when I'm writing properties, one of the very important thing I forgot is you have to write self dot property, because self is the variable which is going to represent the properties inside that class, inside this function. Okay, so you have to always write self. Okay, this much is understood. When the self is used, this is the syntax that one has to use. Okay, now I want to say print inside this function. I will say print total net worth of parent is colon. Okay, something like that I want to print, comma. You can, if there are values, integer values, then you can add. All those things can be done if you know the syntax. Okay, so here all I will say self net worth. Instead of saying net worth, we can say total number of assets, total assets we can say, right? So let's say asset. This is not net worth, asset. Okay, asset, total assets, I can say S. Okay, assets of parent is, then which is that containing all this. So self dot property 1 contains it, comma, self dot property 2, right? Self dot property 2. Getting it? So this way, this, if I call this specific function, it is going to show me everything at a time. So to do that, how will I call it? Instead of writing x1 dot property 1 property 2, what I will do, this will also work. Let it be there. Let me show you how this can be written. So here, what is that function? Like you call any property, same way you can call the name of the function. So that is total assets. So I will say x dot total assets tab. Okay, so this is a function will be called, and whatever you have defined inside the function, that will execute. So if I run this, okay, quite very easy and fun way. So you can see first print has printed the home and car, and the second one has printed total asset of parent is home and car. Getting it? So this way we are inheriting the properties of the parent class to a child class, and we are passing that to an object. Passing that object is very simple, x is equal to child. So when you keep on practicing this, you will be able to remember the syntax. So once you remember the syntax, Any kind of situation thrown at you, you will be able to design it. That's the concept. Okay, so hopefully you have understood how the entire thing has been designed. Make a note of this so that anytime you forget, you can always refer to this specific note, or else my videos are always there on YouTube. You can always refer that. In this video, we are going to learn Python iterators. So what do you generally understand by iterators? Iterate means there is a collection of data and you like to go one by one. And this is a different function that we are going to learn. You have already learned about for loop. Using for loop, you can iterate through the collection. In this one, we are going to learn something different. So let's get to the video. So for that, let's create a variable called numbers. And I'm going to enter few numbers inside. So now what happened? A variable is created which is having collection of various numbers. Okay, now if I have to iterate through, I will use like this, right? So what happens by using x in numbers? It is going to iterate through each of the data inside the collection, and I would like to print, I will say print x. Simple. Now if I run this, what is the output am I expecting? 1 2 3 4 5, right? Whatever the numbers are there inside, it got printed. So this is one easiest way we know. There is also another method. Okay, the another method is also important to learn. Now let's see how the other method works. So the other method is known as iter or iteration. Okay, so what I will do, I'll create an object and then I will say iter, and within the parenthesis I'm going to pass the variable which is holding all those collection of numbers. With that, all the numbers that are there inside the collection variable, inside the numbers variable, everything would be passed to x now. Now how do I print these values? Okay, now to print these values you have to use another function called next. Okay, so how it works is I will say print, then I will say next, and then within the parenthesis I will say x. Okay, so this is a simple way. Now if I run this, what should be my output? It has printed only 1, because the first number you said next, so it has printed only 1. Okay, now what should I do to print the next one? So this is a different way. This is a different way of getting the data from a collection. Now here if I let it be x, it has to be x. If I run this, what happens? Then it says 1 2. So if I have to run all the collection, if I run through all the collections, or let's say there is an entire collection of data, right? There is an entire collection of data. Let's say I wanted to only deal with the first 4, right? So there will be practical use of this will vary depending on the situation, right? But again, you can imagine when I'm writing next, what is happening? I'm just selecting the first 3, right? The first 3, and I'm trying to print. This is another way. Instead of using a for each loop, you'll be using a iteration next. If it is really required in certain situations, probably you can use that. This is an entire loop, but again I want to use just the first data, whatever comes in the loop. So I'll say print next x. So whatever the collection doesn't matter, it is always going to work with the first data, right? So that is one of the use which I have explained. So remember how to use iteration function, and in combination with next it has to be used. Hey guys, myself Rakesh, and in this video we are going to learn about Python scope. There are two different kinds of scope. One is the local scope, the other one is the global scope. What are these? We are going to learn everything in detail. So please do watch this video till the end. So first of all, to understand the local scope and global scope, let's create a function. Okay. So the function will be created with this syntax. You can give any name that you want. Okay. And then I am going to write a variable. Let's say I'm going to say a is equal to 500, and I'm going to say print, and I'm going to say a. Now if you call this specific function, right, this way you can call the function by taking the name of the function. Now if I call, what is the value will be printed? Of course 500, right? So now what is happening? This function, this value of this a remains 500 all the time. Let me first run it. right? And this variable a, which is getting printed through this function, the value is 500. Now, is this value a local value to the function or not? Yes, of course, it is a local value to the function. How do I know that? If I say a is equal to, outside the function, if I am writing 600. If I am writing 600 outside, or let's say below this, right, outside the function, if I am writing a is equal to, let's say 800, I am writing two different values. Now tell me, is it going to print 800 or 600 by any chance? No, it's not going to print. Now if I say print a, I am going to say print a. Now tell me, is it going to print 600, 500 or 800? Right, it should print the 800, the latest one, right? So if I run it, for the first function it has printed 500. For this one, of course, we know because that's a local variable, but for the line number 8 it has printed 800. So any variable outside of the function, right, will become a global scope. It will come under a global scope. That variable can be used anywhere inside your Python code. Very simple. So that becomes a global scope variable, or you can say global variable. And anything inside the function will be known as a local scope. This must be understood. Now, what if I am going to ask you something? Okay, let me delete that. And what if I am going to write a child function inside the parent function? So I am going to say child function. Okay, and here if I say print, and I'm going to say a plus 1. Now what would happen? Is it going to the child function which I have created? Will it simply work? No. For that I have to call it by going to the main block. So I am going to the main block, and in the main block I should be able to call it. So how I am calling it? Child function. So what would happen anytime you are calling this function? Let me remove the line number, this one. Okay, so now when I call this function, what would happen? A value 500 would get assigned, and in the line number 5 it is going to print 500. Now anyways, these two lines won't run unless they are called. So here if you see in the line number 8, it is called within the function I am calling the child function. So what would happen? It will come back to the line number 6 and is going to run this particular code, which is a plus 1. Now because it's a plus 1, it is going to print over here in the line number 7, and it should print 500 and 501. Now let's run it. So you can see 500 and 501 has been printed. Now what do you say? This variable is a local variable, local to the function. Anything created outside of it will become a global variable. Even if you are taking the same name, doesn't matter, right? Once it is outside, the variable is going to take its own value, whatever you are going to mention it here. For example, a is equal to, if I am going to say 800, now this a variable will have a global value of 800. So anytime in general, if you are using this particular variable, let's say for example, if I say a is equal to a plus 100, if I say, so the output will be what? The output will be 900. Right now, if you see for the line number 7, line number 10, it has printed what? 500, and because it's calling the child function, it has printed 501. But again in the line number 12, it has printed 900. Getting it? So this is what the local scope and a global scope, what you need to learn. Anytime a word you find, local scope, global scope, you can think of, okay, function. Inside that, if there is a variable, that I will call it as a local with a local scope and a global scope. Anything outside of the function, if it is created, then that becomes a global scope variable, right? So with this little bit of knowledge, because there are so many things to remember in Python, there are so many multiple syntaxes that one has to master, so it is easy to remember with an example. If you could recall the example, it is quite easy to remember what is a local scope and what is a global scope. Hey guys, myself Rakesh, and in this video we are going to learn about Python modules. So if I ask you, can you write Python codes in a single file and save that file, and will you be able to use that file anywhere, and how to use that, right? So Python module, when I say, or anybody says Python module, is nothing but it's a .py file, and we know .py is the extension used to save Python codes in a file. Like you save a notepad file in .txt format or any other file, right, in their own application format. Similar way, Python files or the codes that you have written in a Python file, that should be saved always in .py format. Now, how do I create this file and how do I really import this file and use this as Python modules, we are going to see in this video. Now, first of all, I need to create a separate file. So I am using a main.py file. I will create a new file now. So how do I create a file? So creating a file is pretty simple. Right click and hit on new, and here I am going to hit on Python file and give it a name. Let's say, first let's start with a simple one. Okay, I am going to create a module called greetings. What is the module name? Greetings module. Okay, I'm just giving entire name, you can keep it short. Greetings module, and hit on enter. So what would happen? You can see greetings module has been created. Okay, now here let's write a simple statement, some few lines of code in Python we will write. I'll create a function called define, and I'm going to give it a name called greetings, and within the parenthesis I'm going to create a parameter called name, and then I'll use a colon mark and hit on enter. Okay, we'll keep it simple. First of all, let's learn the basics, then we will get on to other things. So I'll say print, and then here I'm going to say hello, in double quotes I'll say hello, and then I'm going to say the variable name, let's say name. Okay, that's it. So 2 line of Python code I have written in a .py file. Okay, so now this file, let me save it. You can do a Ctrl S, or else you can do file save all. Okay, you can do this way. Now what we will do, we wanted to really see this file. So right click on this file, and then you have the option to open in Explorer. Okay, open in Explorer. If you do this, it will take you to the exact project location of the Python files, and here you see I have 3 different files. One is the main, the other one just now I have created greetings.module, and this one. Now if you right click and see, this file has an extension .py, that means it's a Python file. Right click and you can open on properties in case you would like to see. Anyways, it has got the PyCharm symbol, but again, in case you are interested to explore and understand, you can see it has a .py extension. Okay, so we have understood, we just created a file, and inside this particular file, .py file, we have written few piece of code. That's it, we have done nothing. Okay, now I'm going to, so this is the file which I have created and I have saved it. Okay, I don't need this. Okay, let me close it. Now let's say there will be a situation where I have to use this module several times in my code. It should say hi, whoever is the customer. It could be John, it could be Rakesh, it could be anyone, right? So anybody who is going to come to the shop, it should say hi or hello. So how that can be done? So I have created a module named greetings.py, greetingsmodule.py file. I need to be able to call that file. So that is the module you have created, right? When somebody says Python module, that means you have created the module called greetings.module.py. It's a py file, very simple. Now how do I use that py file? So you created a Python module. Now how to use that? Let's see it. Okay, so all I will do, I'll simply say import. Now I need to type the name. Now look at it, I'm typing the name. See, on the left hand side, greetings module is there, but it's not appearing. If I simply type greetings module, why it is not coming? And it is giving me a error, this one, right? There is an error. Why? Because in Python everything is case sensitive, right? So if you look at your greeting, G started in a capital letter and you are writing here in a small letter. So that means you cannot call this kind of a module. So because everything that you're creating in Python, they are case sensitive. Okay, so you have to really call exact way. Okay, so how should I call? I should type G. The moment I'm typing G, it has come. Do you see? Automatically it has come. Getting it? So many people will make mistake. They will type the name, but it's not coming. See, it's not coming. Don't worry. Now I have another file also here on the top. So if I type A, it's not coming. But if I type capital A, it is coming. Getting it? So it is case sensitive. Remember that. So let's type it in a right way. Let me type G, and this has come. Okay, that is the first point people will make mistake. So you should type it in the right way. How the case is mentioned, the same way you have to mention. If you are starting with a lowercase, start with a lowercase. Starting with the uppercase, you have to start with the uppercase. Okay, that's all. Alright, so this one thing we have got it. Now I have called it. That means in the main.py file, now the greetings module has come. That is a separate file, but again the entire module now I have brought it into a new file. It is a different file. Think it's a different file. It's not part of the project. It could be a different file. But again, that greetings.module.py should be inside your project folder. Otherwise, you know, there are other ways to do it. But again, in this case, if you see, I have the greeting module kept inside the same project folder, so it is easy to handle it. Okay, so now I am able to get this module. After that, how do I really use this? Okay, so to use this, you have to use the name of that module. See, name of the module. Again, it's case sensitive, so be pretty careful about that. So I have typed G in capital. So greeting module has come, and then what should I do? I have defined a function inside that. If you remember, I have said define greetings. So the moment I am typing a dot, the function that I have defined inside that, let me open it beside it so that so this is the function which I have created. Now the same function, the moment I am hitting a dot, it is automatically coming. All I have to do, I have to pass an argument value. So what is the value? Let's say I am going to say John. So if I say John, and if I am going to execute this, it's saying hello John. Getting it? If I pass it another value, doesn't matter. You are just calling that module, and whatever codes you have written inside that, it is just getting executed. It is just taking the value from this file and is going to that specific file, passing it on, and getting, you know, whatever statements you have written there, it's going to do it. Right? Now you will have a question. Okay, Rakesh, can we do something little different? Let's say, can I create a add module? Anytime people are sending values to it, it should go and add those two values and show it in this file. It's a different file. Yes, let's do it. If you are interested, let's do it. Now what I will do, let me create a file. Okay, right click, new file, Python file. Okay, select Python file, and then I'm going to say add. I'm simply giving us add m. Add m means add module, let's say. Okay, I'm just giving a name called add m. Okay, so the py file got created. Now here let's create a function called define addition or define add, and then I'm going to say so a I'm writing in capital because add is a inbuilt function. Okay, that's why I'm slightly careful. I'm writing in capital letter A. Now here I need two parameters, so I'll say a comma b. So when you are defining a function, you call that parameters. You don't call it arguments. Okay, you call it here parameters while defining. Remember these terms. Okay, now let it print a plus b value. Okay, that's it. Okay, a comma b is the two parameters I've cleared. It should just join it. Okay, or add it. So this is done. Let's save it. Control S, or you can do file save all, whatever you like. Okay, done. Now let me import that. So I will say import, and remember while typing it should be case sensitive, so I should say add m. So I have called the module name called add m. Done. No colon, nothing here. Okay, you don't have to do anything here. Just hit on enter. In import you are not putting a colon or parenthesis, nothing. Now here the module name is add m. Again type it in the same way. They are case sensitive. Then the moment you put dot, whatever method that you have created inside that is going to show you. Let's say we have created one module called add. Now let me pass two values. Let's say 2 comma 4. There are two different values I'm passing, and now let's execute. Now what is happening? The output has automatically come in this file, main.py file. That is the importance. So you are creating piece of blocks of codes in different py files, and in your main project, whatever is required, you are just calling them. Getting it? You are creating small modules of codes in different files, and you are just calling them. So the benefit of that is when you are creating in small modules, you can call those files n number of times, right? You can utilize them in multiple times. You don't have to write the same code 10 times. If I have to add 10 times, again I have to write the same piece of code 10 times. Now here, because I have already imported the module to this file, main.py file, all I have to do is add m.add. If I write this one sentence wherever in the project I need, I can just do it. with a single line. I don't have to write multiple lines. Because this has got only 2 lines of code, it might appear simple, but again in practical world there will be multi-line codes in a single file, and that entire code I can just utilize just by calling in the main py file with its name. Which is easier? Would you like to write the entire code once again, or it's easy to call the file and utilize everything written there multiple times in this, right? That is why these modules are very, very beneficial. And in a real time, we have to build projects on Python, you would be asked, hey, you create this module, hey, you create that model. You'll be given multiple modules and you'll be creating those modules, and during the project integration, all those modules that has been created will be called in the main.py file, and here I'll be calling all those modules that developers have created, and I can just integrate them and get what I need. Getting it? So that is how in a real-time world it will happen. We are going to see that as we progress, but I am pretty sure you must have understood the meaning of Python module and how to create it with this simple example. Okay, then we'll get into more complex situations as we proceed. Hey guys, myself Rakesh, and in this video we are going to learn one more important aspect around module, right? If the module is created with a dictionary variable, how do you really access those values from the module? Let's see this. Let me create a new file and give it a name. I'll give it a simple name called module1, okay, and hit on enter. So the module1 py file got created. If I go to my Explorer, you can see module1 in the project folder, it got created. Now in this one, let's create a variable. Let's say I'm going to create a variable called student1. Okay, student1 equals to, and I'm going to create a dictionary here. For dictionary, you will use the curly braces. Now here, let's say the name of the student is equals to, let's say I'm going to give John. Okay, this is one value. Let's give it age, and everything has to be in double quotes because these are strings. Age is, let's say the student age is, let's say 12. Okay, comma, okay, and dictionary should not be written in equals. Okay, remember it should be colon mark. Yeah. So all the syntaxes, okay, all the syntaxes you should remember. Name, age, and then what should we give? Standard, let's say, with standard the student is standard, colon, let's say he's in the first standard. Okay, so these are the 3 different values which I have given, and I'm going to save it. We can do a file, save all, or Control S. So this module is created. Okay, now in a different file, in a main.py file, I'm going to import the module. The py file which got created, I would like to import that. And how you have written the name, it is case sensitive. If I type aim, see it's not coming, so you should type in the right way. So you should look at the name of the py file properly. So here module1.py, so I will simply say module, no colon mark, no parenthesis, nothing used here, simply import and the name. Even you are not writing .py, okay, just leaving with the name, and they are case sensitive. Now how do I get the values of the variable which you have created? So the variable is there in which module? In the module1. So I should say module1, name of the module or name of that py file, dot. The moment you type dot, it will automatically show you in PyCharm there is a variable created called, you can see the V symbol, that means there is a variable created called student1. Fine. Okay, now if I leave to this, for example, now let's say I want to understand the name of it, name of that, what is the name stored inside that variable. If I do this, if I say print and if I say a, what is going to happen? The a object is going to print the value, right? So the a variable has printed the value called John. Getting it? So I got the value from this module. It is going and picking the value John. Now what if I want to know all of name, age, whatever is there, I want to see everything. If you want to see everything, then this is the variable which is a dictionary variable, dot, I can say values, right? If I say values and hit on run, what would happen? It is going to show me John 12 1, all the 3 different things I have got. Let's say I want to know what are the different keys available, so I will say keys. So all this I have covered in the dictionary video. You know, how do you manipulate dictionary and how do you access items inside the dictionary in Python. I have shown that. Now if I simply say keys, what would happen? Getting it? All the name, age, all the keys have been printed. There are multiple different ways to do it. Okay, for example, let me use a for each loop. Let's say I will use a for loop. So I'll say for x in a is containing the entire dictionary, right? All the keys, colon, and if I say print x, right? If I do this and return run, what would happen? All the name, age, standard has come. Generally you need the values, not the keys. So let's say I will use values and run it. What's happening? John 12 1 has come. Yes or no? First John, then 12 and 1. This is where you can see all the 3 things. Now let's say you would like to assign one value to 3 different variables. That also can be done. So the variable name, the dictionary variable name is student 1, and then in square bracket, right? That's how you can access the each element. Let's say I'm going to access, put name here, and then b is equal to, I'll repeat the same thing, module 1 dot the variable name, and then here I'm going to say age, okay, and then c variable, and I'll repeat the same thing, dot student, and here standard, right? You can always open the file and look at the spellings and everything. Okay, so done. Now let's print. So now they are in 3 different variables, a, b, c. Now if I run this, what would happen? John 12 1, right? 3 things has been printed quite well. Getting it? So these are the different ways from the module. How can you access a variable, right? It could be a dictionary variable, it could be a tuple, it could be a list, right? Or it could be a normal variable. So how do I pull those variables from a module? You have seen all. In short, all you have to remember is you have to import with the name, and anything you would like to access, you have to always take the name and then say the variable name or the function name or the class name, whatever it could be, right? You just take the file name dot, and if you write, everything will come. Only thing is you should know the syntax. The dictionary variable, how to access it. If it's a list, how do you access it? All those things you should know. That's it. Otherwise, it's all a simple thing. How do you import a module? And in this video, we are going to learn how do you create a Python alias for a module. When I say alias, means a nickname for a module. So first of all, what is this module? How do you create this module, and how do you really provide a nickname or an alias to a module? We are going to see everything from the start. Now first of all, what I will do, I would create a new module. Module means what? In Python, module means creating a py file. So let's create a Python file. Right click, new, and I'm going to select Python file. Okay, let's give it a name. Let's say I'm going to give it a name called Automate with Rakesh. By the way, this is my channel name. I hope you have already subscribed to my channel. If not, guys, please do subscribe to my channel and do support me. So I'm going to hit on enter. So what would happen? Automate with Rakesh Python file got created. Now in this, I am going to write few lines of Python code. So let's go with a simple one, wherein I will say define, and I will say greetings, and then I'm going to create a parameter called name, and then I'm going to put a colon mark. Simple. And here I'm going to say anytime this module is used and the function is called, it is going to print the name. Let's say if somebody is typing John, Rakesh, Rahul, whatever he types, it is going to automatically say hello, and then going to take the name of the person which is being passed. So here I will simply say name. I'll use the parameter name. Okay, simple, done. I'm going to save it. You can do a Control S or maybe save all. Okay, done. Now in the main.py, I would like to import it. So generally to import, you have to take the entire name of the Python file. So here something like this, it is case sensitive, so I have to type it in the right way. So I've done it. Now if I have to use that specific function which we have created named greetings, right? This is the name of the function. Now to use this, every time what I do, I will use the name of that module, and then I'm putting a dot, and then I will call that specific function, and here I'm going to pass, let's say I'm going to say John. So what would happen? Now I am not writing any print command in this main.py file. Because I am using a module, if I run it, through the module it will get this John data will pass to that function, and it is automatically printing hello John. Getting it? So this is the use of the module. I mean, you are calling a Python file which is set of Python codes, you are calling that file and using in another Python file, right? In simple terms. Now it may be sometimes very difficult to take the entire name. You can see automate with Rakesh. I don't want such a big name. I would like to make it small. For example, I'll say as M1. So to create a nickname or alias in Python, we have to use the keyword called as. So here I'm saying as M1, right? So instead of writing this entire name, what I'm going to say, I'm going to say M1.greetings. So is it going to work? See, it's printing without any error, right? So this is easy, right? When you have to give a nickname rather than a long name, we call it a nickname. Generally, to a person who has a long name, we give a nickname. If he's okay, we call by that name, right? The same way, giving a nickname or an alias in technical terms to a module, Python module. So this is how you create it. Let's say I'm going to pass my own name. Let's say Rakesh, or let's say I'm going to say RK. So if I do this, what would happen? Hello RK, it will say, right? You can see. So that way I'm using a small nickname, but you should be careful how you are giving the name. You should be able to remember that, right? So you should give it a proper name. So for example, I've given M1, but you in real programming you give a proper name. Alright, but you understood how to create an alias of a Python module through this video. In this video, I have a question for you. How do you know how many functions are defined inside a Python module? Is there a way to know how many different variables are there inside a module? Is there a way to know how many functions defined inside a module? So this video is going to help you to know all that in a very, very simple way. So here on my screen, you can see I have already created a module with one function called greetings. Okay, now inside this, let me create few more variables. So by this time you already know what is a module and how do you create it. So I am going to create two different variables with two different values. Okay, and I'm going to save it. Now if I go to the main py and I'm going to import the module which I've created, they are case sensitive. Okay, and I'm going to create a alias or a nickname, and let me give it as a nickname called M1. Hit on enter. Now to use any function, generally what you do, you write that module name and then type the function name. But what if you don't know what is the function inside? What if you don't have that Python file with you, right? So you must be having the Python file, but what if you don't want to open the file, and how do I get it? So in that case, there is a way in Python that we can type to know how many different variables are defined inside a module, how many different functions are defined inside a module. All this can be known by simply using an inbuilt function called directory, dir. And here I simply have to give the name of the module. That's it. And if I do this, and if I try to print the value of x here, I'm going to get all the defined functions and the modules inside this. So all you do, just go to slightly right and you'll be able to see A, B and greetings. So these are the variables and one function called greetings is available. So that way it is easy to know, and then using them you can do whatever you like. So this is one of the way. The learning point from this video is dir, directory inbuilt function, through which I will be able to find how many different functions and variables are available inside a given module. Okay, so that's the learning point. We're going to meet once again in the next content. Till then, take care. Bye bye. How do you import a specific function in a module, in a Python module? So in this, our objective is pretty simple. I would like to import a specific function in Python. Now to understand this, I am going to take a blank py file. Okay, I have created a py file and I'm going to write something here. Now to understand this, let's take an example of students. Okay, so I'm going to store few student names. Let's say student 1. You can call a function or call a variable specific portion of that module. Okay, I'm going to show you. So I have written student 1 and I'll be using a dictionary, so I'll be using curly braces, and let's say I want to write name, then you have to use a colon, and the name is, let's say, John. Okay, comma, and then let's say age, again colon, and then the age is, let's say, 12. Let's store something called grade, again with single quote or double quote, grade, doesn't matter, colon, the grade is, let's say, he's in 5th standard. Let's say, I'm just taking some random examples. So here I'm going to copy this and I'm going to paste it, let's say, a couple of times, and I'm going to simply change the student 1 to, let's say, student 2 and student 3. Simple. And let's say the names we will change to Sam. The student 3rd is, let's say, Harry. Okay, and the age, let's say, changes to 15. Let it change to 14, something like that. Okay, and then let's say he is into 7th standard. Let's say he is into 9th standard, something like that. I'm just entering some random data. So here what is happening in this py file or in this module, I have got multiple different data and I would like to only import a specific data from it, or a specific function or a variable, whatever you wanted to import. So how that can be written, we need to learn. Okay, it's very simple. Initially, how you used to do, you used to simply write import and the function name used to write, right? The module name used to write. But in this case, because I have to import a specific thing from the module, for that I'll be using a keyword called from. Okay, from, and then I'll have to write the name of the module, which is Automate with Rakesh. Okay, and I can say import. What you would like to import? I would like to import, let's say, student 2. Again, these are all case sensitive. Student 2, right? So I have imported only student 2. Now let's say I would like to see the value of let's say I want to assign the name of the student 2 into the variable called x. So what I will do, I'll use the student 2, that specific variable, because I have already imported. I can take the name without using the module name. I'm simply taking the variable name now, or the function name, whatever you are trying to call, student 2, and then I would like to see, let's say, the name. So I will simply say name. Okay, turn enter, and let me try to see the value. So you can play around with this, but again, this is the simple way to get it. And you can see the value Sam has been printed because student 2 name was Sam. So likewise, you can fetch any value of that specific function or a variable. You can call it and import. So here, what is the learning point? The learning point is just to remember the syntax. Anytime I have to import a specific function in Python from the module, in that case, all I have to write is from and the module name, import, and the what exactly I would like to, let the function name you have to provide, or the variable name, and then you can pass it like this, or there are multiple different ways through which I can get the specific values, because they are stored in a dictionary. So how do you access a dictionary? All that would apply here, and you can get the values as you require. So thank you guys for watching. This is a simple video just to let you know the syntax and how you can use it. How do you fetch the current date and time, and a couple of other things around the date and time I'm going to let you know. Now the date time, many things in Python can be achieved through the modules. Okay, and this thing can also be achieved through the module. For that, I'll be using the import, right, and the module name, which is date time. Now you will say, Rakesh, you're saying date time. That means there has to be a .py file. That's why you are importing, right? Import means you're importing a file, nothing but a file you are importing, a Python file you are importing. So there should be a file. Okay, now let's first of all have an understanding where that file exists. So all you do, go to your C drive. Okay, open your C drive, and if you have used the 32 version of the Python application, go to program files, otherwise go to program x86 or go to program files. Okay, now in this, of course, I have to look for the Python, right? So you can type P. Okay, there it is, Python 310. That is the latest one at the moment. So let me open this. Okay, now here there is something called lib or library, you can call it. Scroll down, you will find there are so many Python files, and one of them will be date time. If you hit on D, or else scroll down and see where the D starts from here. Okay, look at this. There's something called date time, and this one, if you open the properties of this is nothing but a Python file. Okay, you can see it's a .py file. Do you see? It's a .py file. Okay, now we would like to really see that file, right? What exactly, because all this while we have created small Python module files, writing small codes, but again this one is again, everything has been inbuilt. These are called inbuilt modules. So in this inbuilt module there are many things written. See, datetime.py, many things written. It's a very huge file. A lot of functions can be done through date and time. Many classes being defined, many functions are defined inside this. If you search for, let's say, class, there will be class, okay, class time delta. There are so many different, so many things has been written inside this, which you don't really have to design, because if I have to use date time, I don't have to write such a file. All I will do, there are already inbuilt files available. I will import them and start using it. That simple it is, right? Okay, so you had a look of this file, right? That's good. Now let's say I have imported this file, date time, this module, you call it as a module. So you have imported the Python module named date time. Now what should I do with this? Okay, let's create an object, date time object. Let's say I'm creating an object called X. So the object will only be created when I'm passing the module or a function to it, right? So here I'm passing the module and then passing the class. So this is the date time. I'm passing a class, that's where the object will be created. So date time has been passed. So what is a class, what is the object, all this I have created contents. In case you would like to really see that and understand what terms I am using and why am I using, you should see all those contents I have created. Okay, so let's get started. So date time, the class I have used, and then I am going to use a function called now, or a method or function, both are same. So now, so if I do this, and if I would like to print the object which is X, and if I run this, what happens? The output has come in the year, the month, and this is the date, which is 12th. And then the time, this comes in the 24-hour format. So 11, and everything can be modified. Okay, everything is possible. So 11, and then 16 is the minute, and this is the second, and this is the milliseconds or microseconds, you call it. Okay, so you can see 11 a.m., 16 minutes, 34 seconds, and so many milliseconds when you run. Now what if I would like to only see the year? Is it possible just to see the year? Yes, that's possible. Of course, everything is possible, right? So print, and then X dot, I will say year. So this is going to print me the year. If I run this, do you see year 2022 has been printed? Okay, what would happen? Let me copy paste, and let me say this as month. Right, I'm trying to access the different properties of it, right? These are called properties, class, object, properties, lot of things. I have explained all these videos. If you go to the Python playlist, just follow all the videos, you will learn many things. Let's say I want to say month. Okay, this is also one way. You can also see the day. So let me write everything. There's also a property called day. You can access this. So if I run this, 2022, 7th month, 12th date, has everything has appeared pretty nicely. Okay, there is also, what would happen? Can I pass a date? Let's say I want to pass a date. So you should not use the dot now. That's a method, means it is going to pull only the current date, time, and whatever you like to pull it. Let's say I would like to pass, so I will use the class, and inside the class I am going to pass some arguments. Let's say 2022, comma, let's say 15, comma, let's say 7th month. Now if I run this, what should be the output? Whatever data I have passed, it should go and print the output, right? Date time dot date, okay, month must be in 1 to 12. Okay, this is second one is the month, right? I forgot. So let me enter 7 here, and let me enter 15 here. Okay, now let's execute. Month must be in 1 to 0. Why am I making mistake? Delete. Let me run it. Okay, so you can see 2022, 7 and 15, everything has been printed in a pretty way. So this is only portion of data time. A lot many things can be done with data time. As we go, we will learn slowly. Okay, but this much you should know. How do you, so what did we learn from this video? To get the current date and time, I just have to write dot now. This is the method I have to use, and rest I can delete. Right, this is the way you can pull the current date and time. If you want the year, x dot year by passing to an object, x dot month, right, x dot day, like that you can get the day, month, year. Similar way, hour, minute also you can do it, but at the moment let's learn only a little bit, right? Slowly we will go. And then if you would like to pass a specific date, then remove that dot now, and within parentheses maintain that year, month and date format. Okay, so and with that way you will be able to get whatever is required. So that is the learning from this content. So thank you guys for watching it. We are going to really come up with more such interesting contents which is going to provide you in-depth knowledge around Python. Okay, in depth, I mean you should be able to really understand everything. When somebody says class, object, properties, you should be able to really recall what are those, and everything I have created nice contents, you can really take benefit from them. Okay, so thank you guys now for watching this content. We're going to meet once again in the next video. Till then, take care. Bye bye.